Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
It's really happening. Get ready. We've got sun and a shot at 60 degrees on the way this weekend. Nick?
I'm Nick Monticelli. By now, you've likely heard about an arson inside of Katoy, a popular restaurant in Corktown that was trending after only being open for a year. The latest on the investigation and what evidence the investigators found that makes them sure this was intentional.
All right, Nick, but first, unimaginable heartache, devastating testimony in court as an MSU gymnastics doctor stands accused of violating young children. Thanks for being with us for the news at 5. Dr. Larry Nassar will stand trial on 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct against children under the age of 13.
Though there are dozens of women who claim he molested them and are suing him, only one woman made it to the stand at today's hearing. We bring in Rod Maloney, and Rod, her story was just horrific.
Devin, it's just tragic, really, is what it is. The young woman on the stand today was a family friend, her mother, friends with Nassar's wife. Her father certainly went along, and the whole family were friends. They would spend weekends together, cooking and doing family types of things. But the girl said that when she was 6 years old, things started to change. And she testified today that Nassar sexually started approaching her when she was 6 years old.
He had his pants down and he was exposing himself, and I was standing there as well, and he said, if you ever want to see it, just ask.
The woman as a child said that she didn't understand what was going on, and it became normal for Nassar to regularly approach her sexually. She claimed he later escalated the activity.
I remember him putting his hand between my legs and inserting his finger into my vagina.
She said she told her parents. Her father didn't believe her and pressed her to admit to lying and apologize. It was a real problem between the two of them. She said she did recant her story but refused to apologize. Later, she went on to babysit Nassar's children, and in her most emotional testimony talked about how she could see Nassar's children exhibiting sexual behavior that she said let her know that they too had been molested. She ended up reporting her suspicions.
It took me a long time to do the right thing.
Why?
I think I was scared to rip apart their family.
To do what, I'm sorry?
To rip apart their family.
Did you think that that's what would happen?
Yeah, I thought this would happen.
Now, this woman, who we'll not identify, is 25 years old, has been through counseling, says her entire situation, this entire situation, altered her life in many ways. It completely ruined, she said, her relationship with her father, and it didn't help with her mother either because they didn't believe her in the beginning. Part of the reason she wound up on the stand is that there's no statute of limitation on this kind of sexual abuse of a child under 13 years old. As you know, there are many women lining up saying that he molested them, but many of those cases were reported years upon years after when it happened, and so there's likely he's not to face charges on those cases. But again, there are civil lawsuits and all kinds of people lining up against him. Back to you.
This list of accusers is so long. Rod, when are we going to have Nassar back in court again?
Well, that's the next question. They did not set a trial date on this. The trial is there. You begin to wonder if by not setting a trial date that perhaps they're looking for some kind of plea arrangement here. Yeah. And certainly you should be open to that possibility.
All right, Rod.
Well, it's hard not to be happy on a Friday when we have such amazing weather on the way.
Andrew is in for Ben tonight. We've got sun and 60s in February.
On the way, what about here? Yeah, you're absolutely right. We do have 60s coming tomorrow, but hey, we can also enjoy the weather we have right now. You may need a jacket as the sun sets. Look at the weather. Oh my goodness, look at that. Detroit River looking like a mirror, absolutely calm. I know it's tempting. Make sure you leave the boats in storage. I know you want to go boating when you see the water like this, right? But guess what? We still have February to go with. Even though we have the rest of the month to go through, we're still looking at temperatures above average for a good while. 46 right now. It is chillier for our friends over in Port Huron, while it's already in the 50s in places like Adrian and out towards Jackson. This evening we slipped down to about 41 degrees here in the city, remaining calm out there. What about this weekend? We'll talk about 60s for tomorrow, but what about Sunday and President's Day? That part of your forecast in the next 7 days on the way.
Okay, Andrew, well, we just told you Detroit's Cotoy restaurant was a finalist for a prestigious James Beard Award, and tonight Cotoy looks like this.
It is heartbreaking. Overnight, someone broke in and set fire to the place, gutting it. There is a bit of good news. Check out this Instagram post from the restaurant. It says, thanks to everyone who reached out. They're safe. Cotoy is bigger than any building, and they'll be back. Nick Monticelli shows us what happened. Nick?
And the fact that this was a break-in and likely an arson was pretty evident. When the investigators got here, they realized the door on the back side of this building was busted open and there was a tote bag filled with liquor left on the back step. Cotoy was one of Corktown's young stars, a popular restaurant destroyed in minutes. Firefighters say when they got here, the flames were already coming out of the roof. Everything inside will have to be replaced if the owners choose to.
When you face a situation like this, you have to take a minute and figure out what the next step is. Obviously, this is a dark day and a dark time right now.
Vince Keenan is with the Corktown Economic Development Corporation and was impressed with Cotoy. They started as a food truck, then a pop-up in Ann Arbor, until they opened in Corktown. But investigators say this is not an accident. They believe someone broke in to steal liquor and then set a fire to cover it up. A tote bag filled with liquor was found outside.
Apparently they didn't put that in the car, but we don't know how much is stolen yet.
I usually call it Thai-ish.
Cotoy is a trending restaurant in Corktown with Northern Thai-inspired food. The Detroit Free Press named it the #1 restaurant that opened last year. It is also up for a James Beard Award, which is the highest honor in the restaurant business.
The community is with them, and we will support them, and we will try and figure out how to make sure that they come back bigger and better than they have before.
So one more reminder, this is in Corktown at Michigan and 17th around 6 a.m. So if you saw anything suspicious, somebody walking away from this area that just didn't seem to fit in, please call the Detroit Police Department or Crime Stoppers. That number is 1-800-SPEAK-UP. In Corktown, Nick Monticelli, Local 4.
To add one more wrinkle to it, Nick, police are also investigating a break-in down the street at Nemo's Bar. It happened shortly before the fire at Cotoy. About 2 a.m., a thief busted into the bar, stealing liquor and money at Nemo's, and police believe the two break-ins may indeed be connected. Well, the Plymouth Township teenager who admitted she plotted to kill her family was back in court today.
17-year-old Roxana Sikorsky pleaded guilty to 1 count of assault with intent to commit murder and was sentenced last March to 10 years in prison. Since then, Sikorsky has said she wants to withdraw her guilty plea. Today, she was back in court as her motion hearing continued. The next hearing is scheduled for March 10th. Michigan State Athletics is dealing with yet another issue tonight. This is over allegations 3 members of its football team raped a student in January. Our Mara McDonald is in the newsroom with some brand new information in that case. Mara?
Kimberly Devin, we knew that MSU police had already asked for 3 warrants, but new this evening, they have now asked for a 4th warrant for a staff member.
We aren't naming the 3 players who are under the microscope because they have not been charged at this point, but we can tell you that 2 of them are from Detroit and 1 is from out of state. Now, MSU police are asking for a warrant for a staff member, but it's not for a sex crime, it's for obstructing an investigation. Already, the university has placed football staffer Curtis Blackwell on paid leave in connection with the investigation. Sources confirm the alleged gang rape happened on campus in January, and the student reported it. Right now, the university has 2 concurrent investigations going on, one into the sex assault claim and one into whether the school's response followed the law.
I understand that many in our community may be feeling anxious and frustrated by these recent developments. People might conclude these developments indicate a culture problem here at Michigan State. Let me be clear. We are committed to creating a culture of both accountability and safety and responsiveness regarding sexual assault.
The Ingham County prosecutor, Carol Seaman, says she's got the case files. She's looking at them. She has also asked MSU police for some additional information. You can expect a charging decision soon. We're in the newsroom. Mara McDonald, Local 4.
Busy Friday to cap off a very hectic week in Washington. First, President Trump, his pick to lead the EPA, Scott Pruitt, confirmed by the Senate, the vote sticking rather closely along party lines. As that happened, the president was in the air on his way to the Boeing plant in Charleston, South Carolina, to talk about jobs and the economy. But it's still yesterday's news conference that has all of Washington still talking. Jay Gray has more on that from D.C. Hey, Jay.
Hey, good evening, Devin. Today's event had the feel of a campaign stop, cheering crowds and no questions about the controversy swirling around President Trump's first 28 days in office. Leaving Washington today, but still dealing with questions and controversy surrounding his administration, President Trump traveled to South Carolina.
Boeing has done an incredible job.
As Boeing unveiled its new 787-10 Dreamliner.
When American workers win, America as a country wins. Big league wins.
The president's speech focused on jobs.
We want products made by our workers in our factories, stamped with those 4 magnificent words: made in the USA.
While back in Washington, NBC News has learned at least 4 men are being considered for the job of National Security Advisor after Vice Admiral Robert Harwood said no to the post last night.
I'm not ranting on that.
As the fallout continues.
What was your reaction to the president's news conference yesterday?
The Trump administration to date is an administration that is not only off its wheels but off the track.
A day after the president's freewheeling, at times contentious press conference.
I like what he's doing. I've not been a fan of the extra discussion that he likes to engage in.
So some of us have learned to watch what the president does as opposed to what he says.
Many outside of Washington unsure what to say right now.
I don't know what the truth is anymore.
Almost a month into the new administration. Now, the president will spend his 3rd straight weekend outside of the Beltway. He's scheduled to speak on Saturday at a rally in Orlando, Florida. In Washington, Jay Gray, Local 4.
All right, Jay. Well, he's the Michigan State Police trooper you really do not want to mess with.
New tonight, we'll tell you the one reason no bad guy will ever want to have a run-in with Otto.
Also, a family left shattered because of this man's deadly decision. New tonight, what he did that has him headed behind bars for a very long time. Priya?
It's a love story with an unexpected twist. When she got sick, he got tested, and the results were surprising.
Tonight. New at 6.
Saying goodbye today to an American hero.
He led a blessed life, and my mom has already gone on, so it's, kind of a happy moment for him.
A member of the 82nd Airborne passes away, the member of the esteemed group Triple Nickel. Why we are just now hearing about these heroes.
All right, Sean, plus a pair of would-be thieves picked the wrong store. New at 6, hear from the clerk in Roseville who was ready for trouble and sent them packing.
Well, this is Marcia and Alan Kozma, and it turns out this Grosse Pointe couple is the perfect match in more ways than one.
Well, here's the thing. Marcia's kidneys have been failing for years, and she badly needed a replacement. And as Priya Mann shows us, Marcia didn't need to go far to find a donor.
They call themselves the dynamic duo, and at first glance, Marcia and Alan have a lot of differences. First, he's 6'4", she's 5 feet. She's the outspoken one, he's the calm one. Well, now they have one very special thing in common.
People do look at us and how different we are, but when it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
When they took their vows 13 years ago, Marcia and Alan promised to be there in sickness and in health.
It's meant a lot for me to be able to give you something, because I've always wanted to meet your needs. And this is one need that I would have never thought I was going to meet.
8 years ago, Marcia was diagnosed with kidney disease. Last year, she began dialysis and registered to find an organ donor. Her brother wasn't a match, her mother too sick to donate. Alan was tested last and came back as a perfect match.
This gift of life, that he's given me, it's just been overwhelming.
The couple credits a higher power with a surprise match.
Adam went to sleep and they took a rib from him. I said, well, I'm going to sleep. They're going to take a kidney from me and put it in my wife, and we're going to become one.
There's often a misconception that people of different races can't be a match, but that's not the case. What's actually more uncommon is finding a match who is not genetically related to you.
I think this is a typical example of something coming out of the blue. We actually tell their family and their loved ones, go out and talk to people around you. Even if you can't be the donor, as Marcia's brother couldn't be the donor, you may find someone else who steps up and is the hero.
Marcia's hero is her husband.
I didn't know that this kind of love existed in such a time when it's so hard out here for everybody.
And their love is evident in the way they gaze at each other.
He's got 1,000,000 passes for 1,000,000 years for the next Valentine's Day.
Reporting from Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
How incredibly sweet is that?
Wonderful.
Here in Michigan, there are currently 2,800 people waiting for a kidney transplant. They were made for each other. My goodness.
Story of the week. That was just beautiful. Just watching them with each other.
Yeah.
Great stuff, Priya.
Yeah, that's great. All right, well, this weekend's weather forecast has officials across the state warning people to stay off the ice.
Temperature is going to be close to 60 degrees tomorrow. Nice to have some warmth back, of course, but it's going to make for some dangerous conditions out on Michigan's lakes. Remember, we saw a rescue of 4 people last week. Only about 20% of the Great Lakes are still covered in ice, so if you're planning to venture out this weekend, the Coast Guard is preaching safety first.
We recommend that if you're going to go out there, you let someone know where you're going to be. That includes where you go out onto the ice from and where you plan to be from a GPS coordinates point of view.
Yeah, along with letting someone know where you are, the Coast Guard says make sure you wear proper clothing in the unfortunate case that you do get stranded. And we've talked about it's free fishing week. You don't have to have a license this week to fish, but stay off the ice.
Yep.
It's just none of it's safe.
Not a good idea. It's been too warm. Yeah.
Exactly. Stay on shore and always have a plan. Same thing. We often say that, you know, you have friends and relatives in mountainous areas. Same sort of deal there. And boy, this is a great weekend to get outside. Some great weather for it.
Unbelievable.
This evening, we've got temperatures that are in the 40s right now, diving into the 30s. It remains dry with some beautiful, mostly clear skies overhead, and we're headed toward record-breaking territory tomorrow. Tomorrow's record high, 62 degrees. I think we'll make it into the upper 50s and low 60s right here in the metro zone. Yeah, I love it too, Kim. We're looking at 58 degrees for our friends right here in Detroit by tomorrow afternoon. In our south zone, south of Michigan Avenue, low 60s also from Monroe over to Blissfield. In fact, I bet there'll be middle 60s, closer to 65 in our south zone, while in our west zone, places like Brighton, Ann Arbor, west of 275, upper 50s to about 60 degrees as well. The farther north you go, a little bit cooler than what it will be in other parts of the region, so there will be a difference in temps, but no matter how you slice it, these temps also way above average. The average high this time of year, 36. We'll see temperatures 10, 15, nearly 20 degrees above what it is on average this time of year. Imlay City, low and middle 50s as well. Brilliant sunshine out there right now with 46 degrees currently, winds out of the south-southeast. You can see the records that we have to beat as we go through the weekend. Now Saturday, that's our best shot because we'll make it to 60 or more. Rest of the weekend, Saturday into President's Day, here in Detroit we'll see temperatures mostly in the 50s. So staying away from this record high set back in the 1800s for Sunday, and same thing on President's Day, but still feeling like springtime, right everyone? 39 right now, a little bit chillier for our friends over in Port Huron and generally on the east side and farther north. The areas of blue, that's where it's cooler, but we're looking at temperatures that are in the 50s and still in parts of southeast Michigan, including Adrian, where winds right now are out of the south-southwest, and that general southerly flow is going to bring this, the warmer conditions for us all weekend long. It's 65 right now in Indy, 75 for our friends in St. Louis. As high pressure settles in, starts to jog a little bit more to the east this weekend, winds around that area of high pressure are clockwise. That means they'll come more out of the south and southwest, both for tomorrow and on Sunday. That's why we'll be above average, and it'll be great outdoor weather. Yeah, get the t-shirts ready and get your tee times ready as well. We're looking at 37 degrees overnight tonight, fair skies on average. Sunset is at 6:09 later on this evening. We're looking at mostly clear skies by tomorrow morning when you join me on Local 4 News today. By the afternoon, we make it up to around 60 or 62. I think we have a good chance of tying it for your Saturday. On Sunday, still dry. We're looking at temperatures in the 50s, 55 degrees. President's Day Monday, shopping for a deal. Good deal in the weather department. We're looking at 53 degrees on that day. Next chance of showers is on Tuesday, but look at that. You're right, Devin. 50s all the way through next Thursday.
Not even coming close to freezing at night. Yeah.
I know,
exactly.
And all the sunshine too. That's great, Andrew. Thank you. Well, it's the critical time for the flu, with local hospitals seeing more and more cases every day. They'll tell you if this year's vaccine is really working. That's ahead in Good Health.
But first, a daycare bus full of children involved in a terrible crash. We'll have that next.
At least 8 children were injured in a crash today in Georgia. The children were being transported in a daycare van when it crashed with a pickup truck. It happened this morning in a city just northwest of Atlanta. The children suffered minor injuries. 2 adults suffered more serious injuries. The cause of the crash is under investigation.
Well, dogs are known, of course, to be very good crime fighters.
That they are, but one K9 is proving he's dedicated to doing just that. Meet Otto here. He was called in Wednesday night after a driver ran away after failing to stop for state troopers.
A suspect hid under a van. Police said when Otto found him, he kicked the dog in the head repeatedly. What did Otto do? Held the suspect by the leg until the handcuffs were put on. Otto is going to be just fine, happy to say, after a little love and hopefully a lot of treats.
How about that? Good for him.
Earned a handful of treats.
I think
now,
so.
no doubt.
That's great.
Back with more in just a minute.
New at 5:30.
Spotting sex trafficking. A Local 4 Defender special report. The key things you need to know that could help save someone in danger.
State Representative Brian Banks' case in court now closed.
I mean, this whole prosecution was ridiculous.
But what is next for the former state representative? We'll take a look ahead.
A Lincoln Park man was sentenced today for a crash that killed a motorcyclist. Hear from the victim's devastated family next.
It's dinner time.
Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5:30 starts now.
It was a decision that proved deadly. This man, convicted of being drunk behind the wheel, causing a deadly crash, learns how long he'll spend behind bars. 22-year-old Kyle Gillespie was not only drunk behind the wheel, he was also driving on a suspended license.
Back in August when Gillespie hit and killed Dennis Thomas, who was riding down the street on his motorcycle in Southgate. Priya Mann is following the story with more on the time that he received. Priya?
Devin Gillespie was sentenced to 4 to 15 years on both counts to be served concurrently, and he wept openly in court during the victim impact statements.
That my life has been ruined.
A heartbroken mother spoke directly to the man who killed her son, 38-year-old Dennis Thomas.
He killed my son. My son was a good kid, a loving kid. I miss him dearly.
22-year-old Kyle Gillespie wept as a woman read a letter from the victim's sister.
This day, I am still in shock that my brother will not be here to meet my kids and watch me get married.
Gillespie was charged with reckless driving causing death and driving on a suspended license causing death. Last August, Thomas was riding his motorcycle downriver on northbound Dix-Toledo near the I-75 interchange. He was hit from behind and killed.
He had been ran over twice, pinned under the truck on a burning bike, and bystanders came to his help and pulled him out from underneath.
Witnesses said Gillespie was driving erratically through neighborhoods before he ultimately crashed into Thomas.
He was wreaking havoc over Southgate. People were calling 911 on him for a very long time.
Gillespie pleaded no contest to both charges and cried as he apologized to the family.
It was just something that weighs heavy on my conscience every day. I'm just terribly sorry. I can't imagine.
And the victim's family asked the judge to sentence Gillespie to 15 years, saying they hope that time in prison would give him enough time to think about what he did so he didn't repeat those mistakes. Gillespie ultimately sentenced to 4 to 15 years on both counts. Reporting live, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
Well, it was interesting, Priya, because the judge ordered something in addition to jail time at the sentencing.
Yeah, the judge wants Gillespie to undergo mental health evaluations while in prison. He wants that counseling to continue when he's released as early as 2021.
All right, Priya. Other news today, a judge sentenced former Harper Woods State Rep Brian Banks to time served for falsifying loan documents.
Well, now with the case behind him, the question is, what's next? Let's get out to Rod Maloney live. And Rod, you spoke with Mr. Banks. What's he saying about his future?
Well, he's being coy about it, as you can well understand. He's not getting specific about things, but, you know, there are many possibilities out there for him. But the one thing we do know for certain, he's not going to fade away. If found guilty, he could have served up to 15 years in prison for the habitual offender account. The deal struck instead. He resigns from the legislature and he pleads guilty to a misdemeanor and gets time served in jail, which was 1 day. His attorney, Ben Gonick, reiterated his original claims about the case when it appeared on the eve of the statute of limitations running out.
I mean, this whole prosecution was ridiculous and a waste of the taxpayers' money, and it's really pretty sad.
Gonick claims there can be no doubt this was a political prosecution despite the Attorney General's claims otherwise. And it has to do, he believes, with the fact that Banks fought Mayor Mike Duggan's de-insurance plan.
Bill Schuette is in, the insurance companies are in his pocket. And they knew that Mr. Banks, or they know that Mr. Banks is an opponent of de-insurance, which is horrible for the citizens of the city of Detroit. Now it's all of a sudden coming back up again, and it's because Mr. Banks is out of office.
It was a bar exam prep course loan taken from a Detroit credit union that got Banks in trouble in the first place. He says he paid the note back with interest, and it didn't take him long to get back on the stump.
Our citizens deserve a strong voice, one who will not be bullied, one who will not be taken down. And you've seen my hard work, my effort to stand up for our public schools, our teachers, our insurance industry, and I'm going to continue to work on those matters that matter most to you.
Now, Bill Schuette, the Attorney General, put out a press release today, and it says, quote, former Representative Banks pleaded guilty, admitting he did indeed commit the crime for which he was sentenced. I am pleased to see this case come to a close and that residents of this district have a chance to get an honest, hardworking, and law-abiding representative. Clearly, they're not going to be exchanging Christmas cards. Back to you.
Well, Rod, I know you said that Mr. Banks is somewhat playing coy in terms of what's next for him, but you've got a lot of contacts. What are you hearing in political circles about what he plans to do next?
Well, the belief in Lansing is that he's likely to run for his own seat again. They have a special election coming up in August, and he may run for that, but he did tell me today that he has a number of options, perhaps some even in the private sector, so he's not quite sure what he's going to do, but the expectation is that he'll be on the ballot come August.
Yep, don't count him out just yet. Okay, Rod, thank you. A man drives himself to the hospital after an overnight shooting in Detroit. Police say a 28-year-old man was shot on Guilford Street around 2 this morning. When he heard gunshots, he had no idea where those shots came from, but realized he was later shot in the stomach. The man immediately drove himself to the hospital and is currently in serious condition. Police are investigating.
More than 24 hours later, heads in Washington still spinning a bit after President Trump's big news conference yesterday. A short time ago, I caught up with NBC political director and the moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, to talk about a very memorable Thursday. Well, Chuck, I imagine you've run out of adjectives to describe yesterday's news conference. Yeah. But I think that what I'm concerned about and wondering about is when will we ever see opinions changed? I think yesterday Donald Trump's supporters got exactly what they wanted. His detractors saw more of what they've been seeing.
Well, I think I would just be careful in assuming that everything is a 50-50 proposition and everything is being seen only through red or blue polarized glasses, right, by the masses. I think, look, we know there is a core group of Trump supporters. There's somewhere between 30 and 35% of the electorate. But those aren't the folks to keep an eye on. And, you know, he may not ever lose that core group of 30 to 35%. The folks to keep an eye on are that next 10 to 20% that make up that were folks that did vote for him, but were skeptical of him when they voted for him. They voted, maybe they were more voting against Hillary Clinton rather than for Donald Trump. And those are the folks here to watch. Where, you know, as far as elected officials, the folks that best represent that 10 to 20% are people like John McCain or Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan. They sort of embody the Trump skeptic voter. And that's the folks to watch here. And right now, for instance, that was the fallout, I think, this week that isn't going away for President Trump. While the theatrics of the press conference may have worked short term and may have made him personally feel better, I think he enjoyed himself for the first time while president, right? And while his base may make him feel good about it, there's a whole bunch of Republicans on Capitol Hill that are going, this is no way to run the country, and he may be doing ungovernable things. This was also a news conference in the truest sense in that so much of it was about the news, about news coverage, and it requires, I think, an awful lot of discipline from the journalists in the room who are being assailed and attacked for what we do every day, and yet need to somehow do it without prejudice. Devin, look, when somebody challenges your integrity in your face and says you're dishonest, you're a liar, you make things up in your job, we're all human beings, right? Your initial reaction is, are you kidding me? Any of those things were true, I would have been fired. And look, this is the message I know that I'm trying to share with skeptical viewers, right? We all know that they're out there, folks that no longer have any trust in anything they see in the press. And look, and I think we have an obligation to rebuild that trust. But I tell you who's got a bigger obligation, and that is the folks in power, including the person that has that bully pulpit of the White House. If he is screaming at the top of his lungs that all the news media is fake, 30 to 35% of the country is going to take him at his word, no matter if he presents no evidence. That's very dangerous precedent to set for the democracy. And that's the challenge here, I think, that we're all facing as an institution.
Well argued. Chuck, thanks for the time. We'll see you Sunday morning.
Devin, thanks very much.
All right, and more news. The Coach Insignia will serve its final meal atop the Renaissance Center tomorrow night. The Coach Insignia has been serving customers on the 71st and 72nd floors of the RenCen for 13 years. But last month, RenCen leaders decided not to renew the restaurant's lease. After the closure, Coach Insignia workers will be transferred to a new restaurant, while the RenCen says they hope to add another restaurant there sometime very soon.
Now to good health. Flu is hitting hard across the country and here in Metro Detroit.
Yeah, Beaumont Canton says more than 60% of its patients this week are being treated for flu. And McLaurin Macomb is reporting an epidemic of influenza A.
So now tonight the CDC is warning there could be weeks of flu season still to come.
The map tells the story. Flu activity is widespread in 46 states. Only Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, and Utah remain a step below with regional cases. Adult flu deaths aren't tracked, but so far 29 children have died from complications of the flu. Unlike some years, this season's vaccine is a good match.
All of the testing that the Centers for Disease Control is doing is showing that these strains are covered by the current vaccine.
The University of Michigan's School of Public Health is one of 5 sites in the U.S. that gather data to measure how well the vaccine is working. Overall, this year's shot is 48% effective at preventing the flu. While that might not sound impressive, it's far better than the 2014 shot. It was only 19% effective. Dr. Eden Wells from the Michigan Department of Health urges everyone to help stop the spread.
If somebody is infected, try to make sure that they're staying home, away from work or school until they improve.
And yes, if you haven't already, it is still worth getting the vaccine.
What can happen with influenza is that a strain can come around, disappear, and then in the late part of the season, another strain, also covered by the vaccine, can take hold. And that's that late winter, early spring flu attack that many people aren't prepared for.
And experts say that late surging strain may be an influenza B strain. The vaccine is actually 73% effective against that particular strain.
60 degrees, we can't even think about the flu.
I know, right?
2 police officers go way above the call of duty.
What these 2 guys did after seeing a teen struggling on the side of the road with a flat tire, and let's just say they did a whole lot more than help fix it.
Also, you could be in for a real treat the next time you fly out of Metro Airport at 5:30. The Perk Delta is bringing back on board. How about that? Hey, Jamie.
Hello, Devin. Coming up in sports, a really great night for a fan who hits an impossible shot, but that's not even the best thing to happen to her that night. Details next.
New at 6.
Well, he was best known as George the Animal Steele, professional wrestler. Many around here knew him better as a teacher and a coach. At 6, the impact this giant of a man had on Metro Detroit outside the ring.
It's a new class here at the University of Michigan dedicated to students who get their news from social media. I'm Evrod Casimir. Coming up, we'll show you how this new class is helping students spot so-called fake news.
All right, Evrod. Defender Karen Drew's special investigation this week into a large-scale sex trafficking bust during the auto show has captured your attention. It is by far and away the most clicked-on story on clickondetroit.com. Well, tonight, Karen shows you who's being targeted and what's being done to teach parents, teachers, and the public to notice the signs.
I haven't heard anything about trafficking in Michigan.
You're watching part of a documentary from the Wayne County Medical Association about human trafficking, specifically targeted to Michigan. This documentary and this recent summit held in downtown Detroit are just some of the many ways word is getting out about this growing problem.
Victims that we've talked with is that they were high school
girls servicing 15, 18 guys in a motel room. Somebody sees that going on somewhere.
Bill Sumner was so worried about the issue, he started a nonprofit to raise awareness about human trafficking, gathering hundreds together at this first-time summit of public and private businesses.
We're gearing it toward high school kids and first-year college. That's when people are trafficked.
The average age of a person being trafficked is 13 years old. 98% involve females.
The kids that are involved so far in 2016, we've seen, we've already recovered 93 kids from juvenile sex trafficking and being exploited.
Yes, it happens to Teresa's and people that look like me.
Teresa Flores was raised in Birmingham when she became a sex slave as a teenager. She now travels the country and shares her stories and her books about a life most can't imagine. That's why the FBI wants the public to know what to look out for.
Something just doesn't seem right here. There's 3 adults with 1 young teenager riding in a car together. None of them are related, and you know, the child has a lot of hotel keys. They have 4 cell phones. They have high-end bags and purses and whatnot. So there's just a lot of things that just say something's just not right here.
Karen Drew, Local 4 Defenders.
Wow, really eye-opening.
It sure is, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper, unfortunately.
Indeed. All right, a grandmother in China says the key to living a long life is Kung Fu.
I'm going to believe her because she's 94. Shang Shan says she's one of the fittest people in her village, and for her it's simple. She walks around her village, picks vegetables, and, importantly, practices, there she is.
Look at her on the sticks.
Kung Fu every day. She says she's actually been doing this now for more than 90 years.
How about that? Look at her. She looks like she's in great shape.
Yeah.